Hi, it's Calvin Niles, the mindful storyteller, and I am delighted to share with you stories of awakening. Each week, I'm going to be talking to people from around the world of various backgrounds and experiences. People I love, I know, and people I admire, but also those who are completely new to me. One thing all my guests will have in common is that they have been through a journey of awakening. By awakening, I mean a call to higher consciousness and deeper self-awareness beyond material reality. These stories will be real, challenging, funny, stimulating, and insightful. We're going to take our good time with these conversations. So listen from your comfy chair with your favorite drink, or on your weekend stroll, your morning routine, or whatever makes you happy. Stories of Awakening with me, Calvin Niles, and I look forward to you tuning in. Okay, welcome to another episode of Stories of Awakening. I am here with an incredible person I recently met, actually, by random chance, Simon Pollard. Simon Pollard, countryman, modern day pagan, and an author. Actually, how I met Simon was his wife gave me his amazing book, The View Over the Wall. And when I started reading your book, Simon, I was just like, I got to meet you and I got to have a conversation with you on Stories of Awakening because the stuff in here is so interesting. So thanks so much for coming on and welcome to the show. Just Simon, literally is just about your journey, your path to higher consciousness, your journey of awakening, so to speak, and whatever else you want to share. So welcome, and how did it all begin for you?
Well, thank you very much. It's funny when we were talking the other day about the story and the book and the wall, and when you take that around the idea of a story of awakening, and you think, okay, what are you awakening from? What are you awakening to? And there are many parallels with walls and with awakening. And if you're going to say, well, if you're awakened, why were you asleep in the first place? Or why did you have a wall around you in the first place? And I kind of thought, well, rather than start at the kind of awakening part, maybe you should kind of like go back and say, what was it that caused me to be asleep or to build the wall? You know, and I mean, I grew up as a teenager with Pink Floyd's The Wall and the animations of Gerald Scarfe, and they were all pictures of this person building this big wall around themselves. And I have to admit, I've never actually thought about this until very, very now. So how spontaneous do you actually want it? But there were a huge amount of parallels there, and we go through our life, we go through a journey, we have experiences, and we react to them in ways that seem appropriate to us. And I guess I've always been a little bit of an outsider. I always remember, I was massively into U2 back in those days when Bono was still cool. And Edge got the name Edge because he was always on the edge of all the social groups. He was never actually in any of them. And I remember identifying with that as well. But I grew up listening to music, listening to bands. Music's been possibly the one absolutely, totally constant ally throughout my entire life. But as you do, I met a woman. And felt absolutely, totally, utterly, passionately in love, and had a very emotionally intense, tumultuous 4.5 years with this lady. And she had an awful lot of baggage. And as somebody else said to me at the time, I spent that time putting her back together. And I put her back together and she got up and walked away. And terribly, terribly distressingly, I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken enough that it took me a year or so to actually start managing to function properly. And I had one or two actually really cool friends at the time who put up with my emotional ups and downs and emotional ups and downs. And quite possibly, I never actually dealt with any of those emotions. I just buried them, put them behind a wall, and just locked them away. Met another lady and married her and had a son, and was quite probably coasting for 20, 25 years. Not really realizing that I was coasting until I can look back at it. Because at the time, you're just doing what you do. And I was drinking an awful lot of alcohol. And back in the teenage, early 20s days, I was smoking an awful lot of weed as well. And basically just blotting everything out. Packed the weed in before my son was born. Not at anyone else's request, so that was pretty cool. But I was still drinking, and then I started drinking more. And I was one of those people who didn't have a full level. And probably 80% of the time would be regular, nice, friendly, happy drunk. But on the other 20, 30% of the time, I could be the biggest arse the world had ever seen. And eventually, the lady said, well, I've had enough of you. And she went. Which was kind of a little weird because, well, I say weird. Let's just ramp it up another stage further. I'd actually packed in smoking about probably actually 4 or 5 months before she departed. And what the smoking cigarettes, nicotine used to do was actually kind of like balance out a lot of that drinking angst or the anger or whatever that was in there. And when I stopped smoking, if you like, that containment was gone. So I'd fly off the handle at virtually nothing on a fairly regular basis. And the irony was is that she'd already said, if you pack in smoking again, I'm going. So within what, 3-4 months of me packing in smoking, she went.
So you actually had the opposite of what a sort of typical example would be, where some people would be like, oh yeah, my partner was trying to stop me from drinking or stop me from smoking, but it was actually keeping you easier to live with.
Looking back in retrospect, I think so. One of the things that I know now, and I've written blogs and things on this, because my current wife would like me to be a little bit less open on occasions. But I don't have any, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are 1 or 2 things I've done that I'm extremely embarrassed about, and I'm not going to get into any depth about those because I'm extremely embarrassed about them. But for the most part, I don't have any real issues about the behavior that I had, because you need to address issues. You need to, but you've got to be ready to address those issues. That's the biggest thing. One of the things, and again, I've written about this, and the smoking bit is in the 3-year pond. The drinking section is in the view over the wall. If you want to do something, you'll do it. You know, and if you look at it on that basis, if you want to buy a brand new car, you'll find a way to get the money to buy that car and worry about paying it back later. But it's exactly the same with everything. It's working out how to do what it is that you want to do. Now, I, like many, many people, have given up smoking because I'd either tried to give up because I wanted to, or because I was going to do it for someone else, or X, Y, Z different reasons. And I'd always failed. When I actually wanted to give up because I wanted to give up, it was easy. And I mean, seriously, I mean, don't get me wrong, I bought an electric cigarette and all the rest of it. But within about a month, 6 weeks, I'm like, what's this for? I wanted to do it right to the very core of my being. it's the time it takes between knowing that you should and actually wanting to that is the tough bit. And it was exactly the same with alcohol. It took me 5 years between knowing that I needed to give it up and actually pack it in. And to be fair, some of the performances I put together, I was absolutely staggered that Gillian, my wife, stuck in the entire way through. And she did, because she's always said, and she's backed it up every single opportunity, that she saw way more in me than I ever did. And her belief in me has never wavered. And she's always said, don't ever, 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 ever doubt us. So that's possibly one of the key things for me, and actually sorting myself out, because when there are demons is a rubbish word, but when there's demons crawling around your head and you're not comfortable in yourself, then you do whatever you can do to mask that. And those people that actually stick with you, and to be fair, they tend to be a bit few and far between, you need to hold on to with every ounce of breath that you have in your body, every ounce of strength. And she's still here. And to be fair, so's my son. He's always stuck here. When his mum decided to go, he stayed. And in fact, he was the other one who kind of helped me get my head together.
Hi, if you're enjoying this conversation, you might like SOAR Book Club. Many similar conversations are happening in SOAR Book Club, a book club for the spiritually curious. If you like spiritual books and community, then why not join SOAR, where we can grow together, learn together in a fun and nurturing environment. Click the link below in the description to find out more about SOAR Book Club, or to find out how you can join. It'd be nice to see you there.
We've always done long distance walking together, myself and my son.
Yeah.
And there's something really pure about long distance walking when you do it with your world on your back. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you have breakfast and you break camp and you walk for the day, and at the end of the day you make camp and you eat and you sleep, and there's no social media, there's no anything else. It's just that basic being outdoors, being in the wild, and it's pretty stunning. And we've done 4, 5, 6 of them now. I mean, he's 22 now. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to do another one. His life is moving on. But there was, when he was old enough to drink in pubs and whatever, and we'd go, at the end of the day, we'd go for a meal or whatever. And I was always a little bit frustrated, the fact that he'd never had more than one beer. So, and I remember talking to him about this afterwards, and he said, Dad, when you had more than 2 or 3 beers, I never knew what you were going to do. So I had to stay sober in case you needed looking after. I'm like, my God, that was... If someone turns around and says that to you, that
was a big wake-up moment right there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
can I just ask a couple of questions, Simon? This is quite a dense set of events that you've explained over a period of time. So just going back a little bit, you mentioned, what is this wall? So there was a parallel, of course, with Pink Floyd and the wall that you sort of barricaded. So I guess what I'm hearing is that the pain of relationships or relationship breakup and, the stuff that comes around relationships caused you to build this wall up to protect yourself. Is that what you meant by, the first relationship that you that broke your heart, basically? Was that when the wall you felt the wall started to
in retrospect, I had no comprehension of that possibility at the time.
Yeah.
Looking back, I don't think my son's mum ever actually broke through that.
Right. Yeah.
It's...
So sorry to cut you. So
no.
you had these kind of coping mechanisms that you that you kind of, the drinking, the smoking, both, all these substances were basically helping you, as you saw it at the time, to avoid the pain that you were feeling, even throughout the relationship with your son's mother, and so on and so on. And that just continued pretty much. So when you said you slept walk through 25 years, that's what you meant when you said, you kind of just went through 25 years asleep. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, again, not, I mean, I'm taking it wrong. There were,
25 years, Simon. That's like almost as old as me.
God damn it. So yeah, I mean, to emotionally, not physically, not consciously, but very much. I mean, there wasn't much that ever broke through. I remember my grandmother dying, and I didn't get really emotionally involved with that. And my father dying, I didn't get really emotionally involved with that.
Mm.
And my mother dying, I didn't get seriously emotionally involved with that. So I would say, to a certain extent, yeah, it's. But it's, where's that wake up come? The wake up comes when there comes a point where you just have to address stuff. You absolutely have to address stuff, or you just fold up and go away. And there comes a point where you have to say, I have a life and I need to live this life. There comes a point where you just have to say, enough, enough, this has to change. And I didn't realize how much turmoil alcohol was causing me. And I didn't realize it until I stopped it. And when I stopped it, again, you haven't got to that chapter in the book yet, I can tell. But when all of a sudden you have a peace of mind, an inner peace, an inner calm, and that's amazing. That is one of the most amazing things that's ever. And definitely stopping the alcohol was a large part of that. But it wasn't the whole story. That's good, could be finished now if it was. It wasn't the whole story. I had, as it says, countryman and modern day pagan. I've always been a countryman. Well, except when I was small, I was a country boy. But the countryside has always been the place where I found solace. And if I was in even drunk, if things were going wrong, I would just take off into the countryside. Countryside has always had that nurturing, embracing, enveloping something. And I've always gone there. When I was a kid, I would go there and I would stay there until either I sorted out what my issues were, or I knew if I didn't go home, I'd get in trouble. That was back in the day before mobile phones, when you were allowed out for the whole day without checking in every hour, just be back home in time for tea or be home in time for bed. Yeah. And that was cool.
Yeah.
I like what I found in the countryside.
Does that still happen today, by the way?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's still kids who are allowed to live like that. That's good.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know about kids. We live in a very different world now where we get Gillian and our son, the youngest, have got an app where they trace each other the entire time. We've been driving up to Leighton Buzzard to see them, and we're really good at missing the M1 turning off the M25. And you'll get a text coming through going, "Where are you going?"
Okay.
So save the kettle for 20 minutes, mate. We've got lost again. Well, we never lost. We just kind of not in the right place. So I don't know, but it's certainly still. I've been using the countryside. But it moves on, and I always wanted to be taking people out on outdoor experiences out into the countryside. But I never really had the bottle to do it, or enough confidence or conviction, um, until we set the first one up on the January of 2020. We got one done. It went really, really well, and then we dropped ourselves into lockdown. So the nicely prepared program of events got kind of caboodled and scuttled. We did a few more, but I hate the word but. I'm doing an awful lot of work now to try and use the word however, which is much more mature and intelligent. However, so fast forward to November 2021, and took out 3 people on a walk. One of those should have been a lot more, but the numbers dwindled. And my philosophy is always, well, let's focus on those people who are here rather than getting aggy over those people who aren't. Took out those 3 people. Now, one of them, well, they were both from a network. 2 of them were from a networking group, and one of them was the partner of one of them. I had a one-to-one with this gentleman, and he'd blown me out. And as we usually do in business, we go, well, he's useless, he's unreliable, can't operate a diary. Obviously not serious about his business. Obviously, blah, 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 his standard business response, and wrote him off. We then had a couple of networking meetings. They were online, they were on Zoom, as the world was determined at that time, and we didn't get in the same room, so we didn't chat. And then he came up to us a little while after that. He said, look, he said, I'm really sorry. I'm at fault. He says, I've got massive issues with anxiety, and I've got these tablets that the doctor's given me, and when it's really, really bad, I take one of these tablets and the next kind of 24 hours doesn't exist. Oh, okay, yeah. He said, and I haven't had the bottle to come and talk to you until now. Can we do this again? Yeah, cool. So he came down, he sat in my garden, down at the end by the pond, and for an hour, he talked. And bizarrely, I listened. But he was talking about the fact that, talking about his anxiety and talking about what it is and what it feels and the issues that he has. And I thought, that's quite interesting. Then we went out on the actual walk itself. And at the end of that, I mean, one of the things we do at the beginning of our experiences, the walks, is can you please, at your best, put your phone on flight mode so you can take photos. At worst, at least put it on silent. He managed to put it on silent, and for the first hour or so that we were out, he's really, really struggling to actually leave his phone in his pocket, because it's his lifeline, it's a connection, it's where, you know, he feeds all those things that he worries about. But as we go through the walk and we go through the experience, he's starting to, you can see him relax. And that was amazing. And at the end of it, he said, look, mate, you've given me the first couple of hours of peace that I can remember in a long, long time. I'm like, wow, okay, that's powerful. Now, what I also realized through talking to him is that, and I've never known it, I've also been dealing badly with a fair amount of anxiety myself, my own. I didn't know it. I didn't realize it. It was just stuff that I was having to deal with.
But so he was like a mirror for you, basically, in some ways.
Yeah, very definitely. I mean, I came from, I mean, don't get me wrong, a very loving but cold upbringing. You know, my parents were very, very supportive in every way that they could, but we didn't hug. You know, we didn't do those things that we generally kind of like are normal for most people as human beings. My sister still doesn't hug. I mean, I do now, because if I don't, I get battered around the head by my wife. You know, and we've had 1 or 2 Barneys over that, because I was just so far out of my comfort zone, I was not coping. So, but when you then look at the back, if you then got a fair amount of anxiety that's kicking off, and you're feeding it with a fair amount of alcohol, and whatever else, it's a recipe for chaos.
Yeah, yeah,
And it was chaos. So that was pretty amazing. The other gentleman he came out because, as the president of this networking organization, he just felt it was his responsibility to support all the members in the group. So he came out and he's polite and brings his girlfriend with him, and he's interested enough to be polite because he thinks he should be. But by the same token, over the 3-4 hours we're out, he's getting totally absorbed in the experience that we've structured, we've put together.
yeah. This is the outdoor walking that you're talking about.
Outdoor experiences.
So this sounds quite recent or fairly recent. Is this kind of more of a kind of up-to-date experience that you're doing right now?
They are an up-to-date. I mean, probably I'm juggling this backwards and forwards. You'll have to put everything in the right order later.
No, it's just a natural conversation. It's no problem.
No. But it was. I guess I brought it in now because of the anxiety kind of thing, which is very relevant to everything that kind of went before. There is a jump, and we'll go back to that.
Yeah.
But so I then realized that I've actually got a very, very powerful outdoor experience, which is, I guess, ultimately how we've ended up in the same place at the same time talking through things, because it's trying to get that across to the world. But then if we then take that step backwards, this is it's a bit like a who's the fella, Quentin Tarantino movie, this all over the shop. But if we then go back, one of the things that has started occurring to me, I mean, I wrote the 3-year pond, which is, it's very much a very personal 3 years. It's the 3 years between going down a very deep, slidey slope into the abyss and coming out the other side. I mean, within that space of that time, if you like, I went to court, were taken to court, lost, albeit I survived, and the lady who took me to court never been seen again.
Nothing to do with you, though.
No. I mean, I believe that she doesn't exist.
I'm joking.
Me, humour. They're saying my mother died, the marriage went down the tubes, obviously going to court, lost a shed load of money. But by the same token, even in the depth of darkness, I'm a stubborn pain in the bum. And I don't back off, and I don't give up, no matter what I might be feeling on the inside. You know, I mean, I went through that, the middle part of that, the year. I can remember, you know, not sleeping, you know, anxiety kicking in. And we all know that the chimp, if you like, the subconscious is most powerful in the middle of the night. When you wake up with something trivial on your mind, you will make it the most massive, massive, catastrophic thing that can exist. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you just think, plonker. Went through all of that, came out the other side, determined never to end up where I was again, and I haven't. I've still made a few lash ups, for want of a better phrase. Wrote that one through, but one of the things that came out of that was the law of attraction. The law of attraction basically means you get what you want. But the problem is most of us don't actually want what we actually want. And we spend our time thinking about the things that we don't want. You know, we want to get rich, but we spend our time thinking about the fact we haven't got any money. If that's what we spend our time thinking about, that's what we get. And that got me looking at, face it, if you're going to run with the law of attraction, you have to take a massive leap of faith, because you have to trust. And trust is something that many of us struggle with. So I got into that. And if there's a fair amount of big leap of faith, there's a certain amount of spirituality that you have to accept or get involved with, because you can't have a leap of faith without some kind of spiritual belief. And that got me looking at a lot of the various different faiths beliefs, religions, philosophies that all run around the world. And I'd always read a fair amount about Native American spirituality. Makes an awful lot of sense to me, about our own pagan Celtic past, about the Aboriginal beliefs, about African shamanism, about Buddhism, about Hinduism, about the Muslim, about the Islam faith. And it just seemed to me that they were pretty much all starting from the same place. And a large core of all of those beliefs was the same. And so I'd had the idea for the view over the wall fairly quickly after the 3-year pond. But it had this one chapter which was about the concept I just outlined, and quite frankly, that the idea of writing that scared the living daylights out of me. Because I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't offensive to anybody, but actually, and it kind of like traversed. There was a constant train of thought that went through all of the chapter, and it took me a long time. I mean, I'd written all the other bits and pieces as they came along, as they came up, or as that's something that I could put in the book. I mean, there's one chapter there about they play cricket in Sandwich on a Tuesday, don't they? We've been out, and it was about the fact that there's so much life out there, but sometimes you just need to get off your bottom and actually go and find it. And that became relevant. And it wasn't until there was a place we used to go to, and every time we went there, something would happen. You know, we'd made some pretty large decisions there on one occasion, came out away and then bottled it and didn't put any of them in place. And changing our mind and bottling it cost us the best part of 20 grand. And that was based on some observations of the world around us, paganism. But we didn't quite have the faith to back it up and run with it. On one occasion, when we went there, I sat down and basically mapped out that entire chapter. And having mapped it out, I then, over the next 4 or 5 months, wrote that massive structure which underpins the entirety of that book. That philosophy underlines the book, it underlines the experience.
Yeah. So just going back a little couple of steps. So you wanted to change, you wanted to take, you wrote the 3-year pond, which was a very personal experience, that you kind of almost biographical, I guess. I haven't read that one, of course. And I've only just started reading The View Over the Wall. But that led to The View Over the Wall, which essentially led or reflects this curiosity that you had about, well, why is it that I can't get from A to B? Or I guess what I'm trying to find out is, I understand that after a while you had this moment where you realized the smoking isn't serving me. Then you had a moment where you realized the alcohol isn't serving me. And your son was an integral part of this kind of, like, just being hit by a truth that was so profound, it just made you wake up. But what was it that switched you on to wanting to look into the shamanism, the pagan rituals, all of the spiritual practices and ancient traditions? What was it that took you from giving up alcohol and substances to, let me look into this part of spirituality? Was it that business venture that you lost the 20,000 in, or was something else happening?
You know, I really wish I had an absolutely wonderful, perfect answer for you. I've got no idea. I think it was always there. It was always there. And I think part of it is that perennial question: what's it all about? What's going on? What's here? What's, you know, is there more than this? What are we doing? What are we here for? There's a large amount of that, but also I just love making people ask themselves questions they can't answer. Little things like, what is it that makes our heart beat? Because something's doing it. If it's not automatic, well, I mean, it is automatic. It's not something that we have to worry. I mean, our subconscious does it, but what makes our subconscious make our heart beat? Can you imagine if you had to remember to breathe? Sleeping would be out for a start. No? So there's something that's going on. And we all struggle with it. Mankind has struggled with it forever and probably always will, because you can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't measure it, you can't quantify it. And in the Western part of the world, if we can't do those things, we'd rather just pretend it doesn't exist. But it has to exist, because if you take it away, we're nothing. So I'm as fascinated as many by those questions. And every single religion, every single philosophy is essentially looking to try and find some kind of answer to that question, as far as I can see. I mean, I always think it's amazing that, considering that all of them pretty much preach, let's be nice to each other, that they seem to get tagged into most conflicts that people have ever created, because they do. I mean, it was Monty Python, wasn't it? Hey, folks, isn't that the species that said, wouldn't it be, isn't that the species that said, that nailed a bloke to a tree for saying, hey, folks, wouldn't it be nice to each other?
Yeah.
So if you like, there's an awful lot of that going on. But it also, and then there's questions over that. I mean, one of the things I love saying to people is, if you imagine you've got a robot and you put that robot in John O'Groats and you're sat in a room in, I don't know, Bromley. And if everything that you see is connected to everything that robot experiences, whether that's, cameras for eyes and TV screens that you see, your entire awareness is actually in John O'Groats. It's not in the room that you're in.
Mm.
Nothing that you're experiencing is where your physical body is.
Mm.
I mean, that's pretty mind-blowing. And that creates some amazing questions. And so that was something that really kind of like intrigued me.
Yeah.
If you then think everything that runs in our body runs on electrical signals. You put your hand on a radiator that's very, very hot, and the electrical signal goes from the sensors in your skin, go up your arm into your brain. It then goes running around your head, where it gets different synapses and connections and whatever.
Yeah.
And it says a message back there in your hand, and it says, take your hand off.
Mm.
And you do it. Okay. We know that. That's science fact.
Mm-hmm.
We also know that there are electromagnetic fields coursing around our solar system. There are electromagnetic fields in the core of our Earth. And you remember when you were at school, they put iron filings on a piece of card and moved a magnet around underneath them, and all the iron filings moved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is no way, with all this electricity coursing around our world, that it's not affecting the way these electrons move around our bodies.
Mm.
We are connected to this world. We are 70% water. And we know what the moon does to the sea, because we see it every day, if we're looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are connected to this world. And science now, quantum mechanics, is starting to actually prove that the law of attraction is science fact. Okay, without getting into too big, we were taught at school that atoms are protons, neutrons, with electrons whizzing around them.
Mm.
When you get further into that and you start getting into quarks and whatever else, there's nothing solid. Everything is just a mass of, I don't know, smoke, steam, cloud of something, with electrons appearing and vanishing at will, entirely dependent on the view of the observer.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming that Stephen Hawkins and Brian Cox are not leading us all down the garden path, and they are or were telling us the truth. Okay. And I think they are.
Yeah. And you think they are because you've had a whole range of experiences that maybe help you to self-validate some of it anyway, after you started investigating all of these things and rituals and rites and truths that we've been sort of aggregating as humanity. um and this kind of validation that you were able to apply to some of this stuff for yourself, that made you go to yourself, well, yeah, that is true. Did that then happen after you kind of went down this quest of investigation? Where did this inquiry take you once you realized that all of these religions, tribes, and ancient practitioners were all speaking about the same thing underneath? When did that epiphany kind of happen for you? And I guess that's what birthed the whole movement of walking in the countryside and the amazing work that you're doing now.
That's another one of those. I have no idea where it started. I have no idea where it came from. What I do know is that having come out of that, I've become a bookworm. Not so much because I love books. I love learning. I love investigating. I love finding stuff out. I mean, I still can't generally read for more than 20 minutes, half hour before I've got to do something else to come back to it. So I want to know more. I want to know more about how it works. But it's funny, the more I get to know, the more I think that we actually need to be looking. I think our ancestors knew way more than we did. I have no doubt about that at all. They were far more connected and far more far more understanding of the world that they were around. And that's because they were connected.
Mm-hmm.
They had that connection. Now, that works on several different ways. Now, if we go back to that cloud of dust and the electrons and the quantum mechanics, now, if you can create everything that you want, and that is science fact, that has the most vastly phenomenal repercussions for our own responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That actually takes away any ability of anybody to go, it's not my fault. If you go back to what we were saying just now, we all want to be rich, but most of us don't focus on being rich. We focus on not having the money. That's what we get.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty amazingly awesome. If we then go back to our ancestors, and they were connected because the cycles of the world were an integral part of their lives and their beings and the way that they behaved, because they had to be. It's only the last 1,000 years we've started putting square boxes around ourselves and isolating ourselves from those cycles and inventing light so that we don't have to worry about when the sun comes up or goes down, that we've removed ourselves from that. I mean, I've asked several times, many times, were there depressed cavemen? I don't think there were depressed cavemen. They might have been upset, they might have been worried, they might have been wanting to avoid being eaten or whatever else, but they're connected to those cycles. They knew they had to get enough food together in the summer to keep them going through the winter, because there would be far less daylight and it would be colder. They knew that if you wake up with the sun and you go to sleep, when the sun goes down, that those natural cycles, and we're built, we are constructed to run with those natural cycles. And so many of the issues that we have are because our bodies are still fueled for those cycles. When you see danger, freeze, fight, or flight. that is still going back to that. But because we're in a completely different situation nowadays, they tend to come out as anxiety, as depression, those things, because we've got responses that we don't actually need in the world that we've got, but they're still there because our bodies still remember. The simplest way to realize that our bodies do remember, when you walk outside your front or your back door and you go outside, you will stop and you will take a deep breath of fresh air automatically. Now, the power of suggestion means that you'll do it next time and you'll go, he was right.
So yeah. So this is all really some really powerful realizations. And I know you were saying not so long ago in this conversation that, you didn't know much of this at the time you were experiencing it, but now you can see, as you piece these things together, why you enjoyed nature, why you enjoyed these long walks, why you like to go for a walk for the day and just eat and go down at night. And all of these things are starting to come together. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is like this nature connection has been a big part of your own story and journey. And in some ways that even led you potentially, is that right, to a lot of this reading and research that you've been doing to help you contextualize a lot of this. I guess maybe a good way to bring us up to date would be, where did these insights now bring Simon Pollard, the author, the Countryman, the modern day pagan? Where did the paganism come in from a point of view of, do you practice any rituals now, or how is that now started to feature in where you are today? And what does that mean for where you're going now?
Okay. The interesting thing is, and it's a kind of contradiction, the word pagan actually means countryman. So therefore I'm Simon, countryman, modern day countryman. But pagan's kind of like balances it up.
Yeah.
So that's very much where I am, modern day pagan. I do firmly believe that there is something more than what we can see and feel and touch. I very much feel that, it's funny, you walk into a room, there's an amazing book called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's descended from Native American stock. She's a professor. And she said, when she gets her first batch of students come in each year, she'll go in and she'll say, how many people love nature? She says, and most of them will put their hand up. That's cool. They wouldn't be coming on my courses if they didn't love nature. How many people believe that nature loves you? And most of them go,
wow.
Now, if you think about it,
yeah, that's pretty powerful.
It's extremely, extremely powerful.
Yeah.
So where do we get our food from? Nature. Where do we get our building supplies from? Nature. Where do we get the air that we breathe? Nature. Where do we get the water that we drink? Nature. There's no way and what do? We abuse nature endlessly. I firmly believe that there is a spirit of some level in every single thing that is on this earth. So one of the things that I do, whether it's a ritual, whether it's I don't know, but there are a few things that I think that if we all shared would help. Gratitude is massive. So when I get up in the morning, one of the first things, we go out with the dogs and I will shout my gratitudes to the world. And that's gratitude to earth, air, fire, and water. Earth is where everything grows from. Earth takes energy from the sun and makes food and makes air. Air gives us breath and it gives us a voice. and it's a medium to carry that voice. Fire gives us life. It gives us imagination. It gives us creativity. It gives us the power to bring balance. Balance is vital. Water quenches our thirst. It washes us. It provides habitat for many of our brothers and sisters, for some or all of their lives. Remember, life started in water, and then it crawled out of the water, and some of it said, actually, it's not that good out here, I don't like gravity, and turned around and went back in. And some of it spends some of its lifestyle in there, and some of it doesn't. And then I'll look to the upper worlds, to whatever they are up there, gods, teachers, angels. I don't know what they are, but whatever they are up there, they're doing something. And so I'll say thank you for that too. There's no doubt about it. There is free will. Thank heavens there's free will. Thank her for wherever there's free will. But I'm pretty sure there's some kind of divine will as well. You don't have to follow either path. But if you can manage to follow both of them at the same time, it's amazing how we've all had times where we've just things have just dropped in. And we have times where it doesn't matter what we do, it's just a battle. Well, I personally believe that when you're following divine will because you want to, you will make things happen. No two ways about it. So I'll say thank you for that. And then I'll also look to the lower worlds, to our ancestors, because I'm sure there is something going on. They are still listening in some way, shape, or form. There are spirits, whether they're animal guides, power animals, spirit guides, or whatever else. And I firmly believe they are trying to give us a nudge. And it's up to us to listen. And I've had examples where I'm looking, when I'm out in the countryside, I've got one ear, one eye, or whatever is always on the world around me. No matter who I'm talking to or where I am, there's always one that's looking around. And there's, it's all open to interpretation, and it's all open to saying, no, he's in that. But I will make those acknowledgements. And then I will make those the gratitudes that I have for those people and those things that are around me. I will thank all of those four directions. I will thank the spirits. I will be thankful that I've got a house, that I've got a garden, I've got a bed on which to rest my head. I have an amazing wife. I have an amazing son. I have a pretty amazing life. I have amazing people around me. I have a business coach who really, really helps out. And there are people that come into my life and are helping me go places. So I acknowledge all of those, because you have to be grateful for what you have. That's vital. I then will come back, and I have a set of exercises that, I'd like to think that I'd actually designed and developed them, but having now spoken to a lady who does yoga, no, they've all been invented by somebody else before, or maybe not quite wrapped up and packaged the way I do. But I get involved in some qigong, some yoga, because you need to be physically flexible and mentally flexible, because as we get older, we get stiffer and we don't recover as quickly. So I go through the exercises, make sure they actually do some deep breathing, because most of us don't breathe very deep. And I go through that and do that. And I'll then sit down, and I've got 2 or 3 books that I like to just touch base with each day. There's one, it's a country yearbook. There's something in there every day for an entry in there that's relevant to the world outside at that day. I like to read through an essay of the Tao Te Ching, which is Taoism, and I don't agree with all of it, but I love the fact that there are lessons that we can learn from the world around us by being awake, by looking. That one's pretty cool. And quite often I'll read, there's a book called Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life by Bob Proctor, or one called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, was written in 1910. It's all law of attraction, and it's all about looking to create the world that you want. I'll read those through, and I'll generally, before or afterwards, I'll put together 20 minutes, half-hour meditation just to help focus and channel my mind to get things where I want them to go. And that will take me an hour or two in the morning sometimes. So I get up at 4:45 generally, pretty early. But the discipline is its own reward, if nothing else, to actually get up and do these things, and it helps. There's no doubt about that. Those are my everyday. I mean, we went on a retreat up in the Lake Districts, and there's an element of paganism to it, but it's basically about just having space.
Yeah,
it's about
space
having
is so
space,
important. Yeah.
Which is vital, and there's so many little nuggets came out of that. Because sometimes I get that carried away. I struggle to get people to listen. One of the ladies there, she said, well, the only way you're going to get people to listen is by shining so brightly that they can't help but be drawn to you. So we're taking that on board, because I'm not the most naturally get up and shout about it person, but we're working on that in all the various different places. So, it's times like that. 2 or 3 times we did activities, and people told me, spread out the cards, take a card, give yourself a focus for what we're doing. Every time we did it over that weekend, the card I pulled out had got balance written on it. We don't believe in coincidence, do we? And how many times does a coincidence have to happen before it's not a coincidence? There's a message there, a clear message there. And my life's been out of balance for the last 3-4 months. And so we're making those changes now.
Work, continuous work, isn't it? It's the work never stops. The work never stops. And I can see that you have a open flexibility about that. So that's really wonderful.
Ultimately, we're not here for very long. Our responsibility, as long as it's not at the expense of anyone else, is to be happy and enjoy every single moment. Because ultimately, what else is there?
Wow. What a note to summarize and wrap up on, Simon. I think we could probably end up talking for the next week or so about all of these fantastic subjects, but that's a poignant note to reflect on. What else is there if we're not impacting negatively on anybody else? Be happy and enjoy each moment. Simon Pollard, the author, the countryman, the modern day pagan. Thank you so much for your time, for your insights, for sharing parts of your story, and being so real and authentic. Showing up, we as men, we struggle with this, not all of us, I don't want to generalize. Generalizations are lazy, but a lot of us struggle to own a lot of this. So I want to thank you for your courage, for your bravery, for your work, for your amazing spirit. And let's have another conversation down the line. What is most meaningful for you in 2022? Is it healing and forgiveness? Is it love and belonging? Or maybe it's the courage to be and to act. Soar Book Club has all of this for you. If you want to read more and need accountability to keep you moving forward in your already busy life, are you looking for inspiration to develop your spiritual awareness? Maybe you want to be part of a positive community during these uncertain times, or connect with like-minded people who love stories and books. Then join Soar Book Club. Hop on board. The train is about to leave the station, and I would love to have you on the journey with me. So click the link below to join. That's Soar Book Club with me, Calvin Niles. I hope to see you there.